Throwing, catching, downhill inside runners. It's a good compliment just like that.
Gets it again to the edge. Krusty Merritt is in. Touchdown, Washington.
Bill killed in his first NFL game. So did the defense. 1 down, 16 or more to go. The next one will be here very quickly, Thursday night against the Packers in Lambeau. Good morning. 21-6, a win over a division opponent in the opener is the thing that matters the most, but it was far from perfect. But so is week one typically, as are the reactions we all have to week one NFL games. They tend to be overreactions, so I'm going to try, or at least attempt, to not get overly reactive today on the show. I have a feeling there will be some overreactions, but that's fine. I love Mondays after games this time of year because it's actually something that is real that we can talk about. But it does take a while. It does, to know what your team is, what it has, what it will be. And it evolves over the course of the season. And more often than not, what it looks like early is nothing like what it looks like later. With that said, it is nice to win a game that is led by the defense. Hasn't happened that way much in recent years, but let's not, mince words here in terms of if nobody saw the game and you were trying to explain it, the defense by far and away was the number one reason for the win. We'll find out whether or not it is trend or aberration. We'll find out more likely than not, within the next month, if the Giants are just horrendous offensively. They were missing their best offensive lineman in the game, Andrew Thomas, and Russell Wilson looks shot to me. He looks like a backup quarterback at best. But there is no doubt that the line of scrimmage was absolutely dominated by Washington defensively. The Giants could not run the football at all. Run defense, the number one mystery to me, the number one concern last year, and until we started to see it in regular season games this year, a concern heading in. Yes, they got bigger, they got stronger, they got a little bit more athletic in the offseason, but how that manifested itself wasn't going to be known until they started to play real games. And it still may not be known until they play real good offensive football teams. I think they will face one on Thursday night. Certainly they'll play a team on Thursday night that was better offensively than the team they faced yesterday. But I do think while it is just one game, and week one is always hard to measure, always hard to evaluate, always tends to fool us. I don't think we're going to get fooled by the fact that they are bigger, they are faster, and they're more athletic defensively than they were last year. And that's not just up front. That is on the back end as well. We knew they were bigger coming in. We knew that Javon Kinlaw was one large human being. Same with Wise, some height, some length, Goldman, et cetera. But last year was a year in which every time the defense went out on the field, it looked not necessarily overmatched talent-wise, but it looked overmatched at times in the trenches. It did not look that way today. I'm going to get to the numbers defensively, which were incredibly impressive. Again, the Giants are the Giants. We'll find out. Russell Wilson was a mess, I thought, yesterday. I thought he was confused. I thought he looked slow. I thought he looked very, very reactive rather than proactive, and I don't think his reactions were very good. But make no mistake, this game was a mismatch up front. It was played on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Washington's defense versus New York's offense was a total mismatch, and it's the number one reason Washington won the game. They won it physically on defense. They won it mentally everywhere. Did you see how many times Russ looked confused by a secondary that looked like they were in something and then switched to something and then back to something else. I thought that the defense really looked, other than the penalties and the lack of a takeaway, really looked fast, quick, urgent, physical, better tackling than we saw on the back end at any point last year. Again, I'll harp on this, but the nature of opening day tends to be less than predictive about what you're going to see moving forward. And it is just one game, but man, it was an impressive debut, and you couldn't have, scripted it any better defensively if you had tried. And imagine that they weren't good defensively against that offense. The fewest points they've allowed in a game since the season finale in 2023. That was the very misleading, if you recall, season finale against the Cowboys, in which Sam Howell, according to everybody that watched the game, including the head coach at the time, Ron Rivera, played as if he was Joe Montana. Again, I'm going to get to the numbers, players from the game yesterday. The other part of the story, after the defense being dominant, was just how sloppy the team was, across the board in a lot of spots. Week one tends to have that, but we didn't see that in the Philly-Dallas opener on Thursday night. Both teams were pretty sharp. There were a couple of games yesterday, including afternoon games, and then last night's game of the year, maybe, in the first Sunday night game. What a football game that was between Buffalo and Baltimore. If you didn't stay up to watch it, when we go around the NFL a little bit later on in the show, I'm going to take some time on that one, because that was epic, and maybe the first of two matchups this year between the Bills and the Ravens. But week one tends to, more often than not, be marked by sloppy play, penalties, drop balls, bad tackling, disorganized in spots with respect to timeouts. And Washington checked the box on all of the week one expected sloppiness numbers. I mean, they were penalized a lot. They dropped a lot of passes. They used up their timeouts. They had an end of first half miscue that against a much better opponent would have really cost them. And I'm going to get to all of the details on all of that. But to me, yesterday was a dominant defensive performance, albeit against an offense that we don't think will be very good, and a quarterback that really does look done, in my opinion. I'm expecting Jackson Dart to be in that line much sooner than even most thought before yesterday's opener. But the defense did its part, and it was nice to see it. And I think overall, regardless of the opponent, it just looks different. It looks different physically. It looks different from a speed standpoint. It looks different from a height standpoint. They got some tall dudes up front. Wise has some height and length. You see that. And then the other part of the game was, it was not a masterpiece by far. It was not what we came to expect in terms of being unstoppable on offense, although at times it was pretty good offensively. It's 1-0. It is a sweep last year against the Giants into a first win over the Giants. I looked this up during the game. Do you know that's the first time in 26 years Washington's won a third consecutive game against its division rival New York Giants? That's pretty pathetic. It sort of, indicates what they were for a quarter century plus. But you got to go back to the 98-99 seasons back to back where they ran off 3 in a row, and they actually made it 4 in a row early in the 2000 season. Nothing other than a 2-game winning streak against the Giants since then. Yesterday was their third straight win over the Giants. Really interesting and I think very optimistic debuts for the rookie running back, Bill Krosky-Merritt, for Deebo Samuel. And as far as Jaden goes, I'll break down his performance, but Jaden was Jaden. Not perfect yesterday, but the impact he has on a game is profound. That is for sure. All right, 1-0. Phillies 1-0. Dallas and the Giants are 0-1. The NFC had a pretty good day yesterday on opening day in terms of their matchups with the AFC. And some of the better teams, or the expected better teams, looked the part, including Washington's next opponent, where on Thursday night, the early point spread has risen since yesterday. The Packers are now a 3.5-point favorite at Lambeau. 8:15 kickoff Thursday night on Amazon Prime. This is a very good early test, and it could be the first of more than one this year against the Packers. There's a long way to go, but Green Bay, again, week one, but they've got talent, that is for sure, and they have talent on both sides of the ball. Defensively, with the addition of Micah Parsons, they have a chance to be very good. All right, my game take, what I liked, what I didn't like, and a lot more when we come back. We'll open up phone lines as well. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. I want what you liked from the game, the good, the bad, anything else you want to add. We'll open up phone lines and we'll start to take calls about 10:35, 10:40-ish. I will get to my detailed breakdown when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. We are also streaming on our Team 980 YouTube channel, so you can watch us there. If you would like, just hit the like button and hit the subscribe button when you get there. All of our NFL talk on this show on Team 980 is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today.
Gonna give it to Samuel. End around. Looking for blocks. Gets him. Samuel is in. Touchdown, Commanders.
Not a bad debut for Deebo Samuel. Keep him healthy. He's going to be a major, major positive for this offense and a weapon for this offense this year. All right, the first game take of the year, the first of 17, hopefully a few more than that, like last year. Last year we had 20 of them, the most ever in a season, not counting preseason games. What I liked, what I didn't like, and several other observations from the game. If you want to start lining it up on the phones, you can do that at 301-230-0980. I want your thoughts on Washington's 21-6 season opening win over the Giants. To me, the headline was defensive-led season opening win. The other part of it would be not exactly a perfect day, very sloppy in a lot of respects. It's week one. You take the win, you move on. You know this as an NFL fan. You cannot overreact to what you see in week one. You cannot think that anything that you see is going to be definitive, that you can make a proclamation after week one. Things change, and they change quickly in the NFL. We'll see how quickly they change for Washington. They've got a week 2 Thursday night game. It'll be here before we know it at Lambeau. All right, number one on the list of things that I liked is just the defense. That was a defensive-led victory, no doubt about it. They held the Giants to 3.7 yards per play. When you hold a team to 3.7 yards per play, unless you turn the ball over on offense or you give up a lot in special teams, you are going to basically shut that team down in terms of point opportunities. It is a lot of punts and not a lot of points when you hold a team to 3.7 yards per play. They overcame a lot of penalties and still only gave up 6 points in the game. The Giants had 232 total yards. It's not the worst looking number you've ever seen, but they only had 90 yards of total offense through their first 6 drives of the game, which took them into the middle part of the third quarter. From that point on, they moved the football a little bit, but some of those yards were kind of garbage yards at the end with the game already determined. The Giants were just 4 for 16 on third down. They rushed for just 74 yards, and 44 of those yards came via the scramble by the quarterback, Russ Wilson, and many of those later in the game. They held New York's running backs, Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary, Scattaboo, the rookie from Arizona State, 15 carries, 30 yards. 2 yards a carry. We can all do that math. And by the way, the 2 yards on average that their running backs got, they had to work for them because they were getting hit quickly and physically. And it was an absolute domination at the line of scrimmage. The quarterback, Russell Wilson, I think he looks like a backup quarterback. I think he's on his third team in what, 4 years, 3 years? 3 years, right? 13, 3 years. Denver, Pittsburgh, Giants. For a reason. You know, Sean Payton couldn't wait to get rid of him. The Steelers, they moved on from him. It doesn't appear to be a situation where he is going to resurrect his career in New York with the Giants. The Giants were hurting up front with the loss of Andrew Thomas. He was inactive for the game. He is, very debatably their second best offensive player after Malik Neighbors. But God, Washington's defensive front played the game on the other side of the line of scrimmage throughout. Wilson, 17 of 37. Hard in the NFL these days to not complete at least 50% of your passes. He was pressured all day long and pressured quickly. It didn't matter what kind of pass play it was whether it was play action, whether it was pure drop back, whether it was, some attempt at a bootleg. The defense held the Giants in 3 first-and-goal situations to just 3 points. So their red zone defense was outstanding. It was utter domination. The pass rush pressure, the coverage, the tackling was excellent. I think you could count the number of missed tackles on maybe 2 fingers. Luvu had one, I think, on Robinson early in the game on a quick throw. It wasn't truly a missed tackle, but he had an opportunity to get him down. I think it was Robinson. The defense was ready. They played fast. They played competitively. They played urgently, tackling, hitting, just loved it. Again, there is a chance that we will look back and say, well, yeah, that's because it was the Giants. But the speed and the physical nature of the way they played is a mindset, and I think that part of it will carry over. Now, there were a lot of penalties defensively, some of them not real smart. I'll get to those when we get to the things that I did not like from the game. And there wasn't a takeaway. There was an opportunity. Will Harris, who I thought was really good in the game, had a big hit on Russell Wilson that jarred the ball loose on that drive that the Giants ended up kicking a field goal in the first half. Wilson was able to, retrieve the ball. Von Miller was right in the lane of a quick bubble screen. If he had gotten his hands up, that could have been a pick. Quan Martin actually had an interception, but that was nullified by one of the many penalties on the day. But yeah, number one on this list defensively. Wow. Now, again, you got to say this, and you got to say it over and over again. The Giant offense might really stink. Russell Wilson might really be a backup quarterback in the NFL. But that being said, the defense had an outstanding day, and I'm going to take the opportunity, because we didn't have it many times last year, to say that Washington won because its defense led the way. Specific players that stood out to me. I thought Daron Payne was awesome. I think I say this every year, so I've been wrong more years than I have been correct. I just am a fan of Daron Payne's talent. I'm a fan of just him in general. Why is that? I don't know. There's something about him that I'm like, God, if you could ever put it together week in and week out with consistency, you'd be one of the better players at that position in the league. He had that great contract year. We know that, and got paid. And this, while it's not technically a contract year, it's a big year for him. He is still young. He is age-wise right at the beginning or in the middle part of his prime years. He was everywhere in this game. Early on, chasing down the screen to Robinson, the bubble screen on 3rd and 11. He got a sack. He had a TFL. He had his hands on at least one pass that he batted down. Daron Payne had an excellent game. I really hope it is, a sign of what is to come. And it may be because of the presence of Javon Kinlaw. I thought early on in the game, even more so than Daron, what was super noticeable was Kinlaw's size and his athleticism. He was a first-round pick. Javon Kinlaw, Adam Peters knows the player, and obviously we thought he overpaid the player, but the player is entering his prime years like Payne, and he's got talent, and his physical stature, and I thought his athleticism and quickness, he was in the backfield a lot. He had 2 pressures. He had a TFL. Javon Kinlaw's presence with that size may have helped Daron Payne. They are probably helping each other. The Payne-Allen combination, we always desired, we hoped, we wished it would turn into something dominant. The truth is, Kinlaw and Payne, talent-wise, size, athleticism, that potential is going to be interesting, because if they play to their best ability, if they get coached and put in the right spots, this could clearly be, a massive change from last year, where the interior of the D-line ends up being a strength of the football team. I thought Javon Kinlaw was really good. I thought the back end overall look, they gave up some things, not much. The Giants didn't get much. And Malik Neighbors is elite already as a route runner. And he turned Amos around, and they tried a lot of different things coverage-wise. But I thought everybody had moments. I thought Amos had moments. I thought Lattimore had moments. I thought Will Harris had, multiple moments. I thought that, the level of competitiveness and urgency defensively was there from the jump. It's going to have to be there on Thursday night with the short turnaround. I thought Wise stood out. I thought Armstrong had a really good game. I really liked Dorrance Armstrong this year. I thought he played really well at the end of last year, including in the playoff games. Who else? Looking through my notes defensively. Overall, Kinlaw, Payne. Wagner had a decent game. Did have the penalty. It seemed like everybody defensively had penalties. I'll tell you a guy that I thought wasn't in there for a lot of snaps necessarily, but number 55, Jacob Martin, I think he can play. Let me see his snap count. I want to see how many snaps he was in. Snap count for Jacob Martin, 28 snaps in the game. So that's a lot of snaps for a guy that, for those of you just tuning in because it's the regular season, not the preseason anymore, I'm sure you're like, who the hell's Jacob Martin? He's number 55. The numbers got a little confusing, especially without Lattimore in 23. Amos wears 23. Lattimore wears 2. Sanders still 0 for those just checking in. I thought everybody defensively, when you hold a team to 3.7 yards per play and 6 points for a game, despite some of the penalties that kept drives alive, you have had a lot of players play well. I'm just looking to see, did anybody not play well defensively? Noah I got away with a couple of things, including a penalty that was clearly DPI with a face mask, actually. Defensively, really good day overall. Deebo Samuel's on the list of things that I like. Not a bad debut for Deebo Samuel. 7 catches, 77 yards. Had the run out of the backfield, 19-yard touchdown run. I will mention right now, although this is kind of on my list of other things, I thought that could have easily been called delay of game. It seemed like the clock hit 0, play clock hit 0, and that there was an extra beat. I'll go back and look at it again. It was just something that I wrote down. I thought it was going to get called. He had a drop, over the middle, but it wasn't a perfect throw. Health is everything for Deebo Samuel. If he is healthy this year, we know as NFL fans what he is capable of. The Deebo Samuel and Javon Kinlaw additions have the potential to make Adam Peters look really good. Just one game. Deebo's got to stay healthy. If he stays healthy, best quarterback he's ever played with, a coordinator that's going to use him in creative ways. We're going to see a lot of days where Deebo Samuel did what he did yesterday. Bill Krosky merits on the list of things that I liked. What we saw in the preseason was really good vision, but you saw that at New Mexico. If you went back and looked at a lot of his games, only played once at Arizona, one game at Arizona. He's got quick burst, he's decisive, and he's got speed. He's a good runner. There's no doubt. He's a talented runner. And by the way, they played a good defense yesterday. 10 for 82 in his debut. It included the read option touchdown run where he bounced it outside. It included that big-time 42-yard run from deep in their own territory late in the game. Old Bill, as Kingsbury calls him, was really good in the opener. And let's talk about it. He was up. Rodriguez was down. We talked about last week, early in the week, is it possible that they won't have 4 running backs active? It's rare to have 4 running backs active, especially when 2 of them don't play on special teams, and they didn't. Now, part of that was the concern over Noah Brown. They brought Chris Moore up from the practice squad, had him active, so they had the receiver that we didn't think would be active. It's still possible they'll have 4 running backs active in games moving forward, but just 3 yesterday, and the decision was to go with Bill over Rodriguez, and he made them look good for that decision. Austin Eckler's on the list of things that I liked. Man, he is versatility definition right there in the dictionary. Is his picture. He can be the lead back, which he started off the game as. And I think, now, maybe not at this age and not with the recent injury history, but I think Eckler can get 15 carries a game if you had to go that route. But how about that catch and that shake and that wiggle in tight spaces on that 3rd and 12 to get that first down before I think Debo's touchdown run. He makes people miss in such a subtle, smooth way. It's a very comparing anybody to Emmitt Smith is very dangerous. This is not comparing Austin Eckler to Emmitt Smith, but something about Eckler, despite the 2 concussions last year, as a running back, he just never seems to take a square shot. It's hard to get a straight up hard, heavy hit on Eckler. 2 concussions are probably an example of me being wrong on that, but I think his subtle movement, his feel for space in between the tackles is exceptional. He had 9 touches on the day, 6 carries, 3 catches for 57 yards. You'll take that from Austin Eckler. On the list of things that I liked early on, Chris Moore's catch, man, on that sideline. What a catch. I mean, his first game makes the catch, toe taps, scrapes on that second foot. Outstanding throw, but an outstanding catch by Chris Moore. I love personally everything that's going on in the backfield. It seemed like yesterday, even more than some of the stuff we saw last year, the motions, the doubling back on motions, and then post the ball being snapped, there's so much misdirection in the backfield in this offense. You got counters you think are going one way, but really they're coming back the other way. You got a quarterback that's capable of doing that. And then with the quarterback, because he is a read option presenter and capable of running it, an RPO capable quarterback, Cliff's got a lot of stuff going on in the backfield. It's kind of fun to watch. Also on the list of things that I liked, man, this team's ability to overcome disadvantaged down and distance situations is impressive. In the game yesterday, like we saw it all last year, 2nd and 16, no problem. 2 plays later, first down. Or actually on that one, I think the next play was a first down. 2nd and 21, not a problem. 2nd and 14, no, we're going to keep the ball. 2nd and 15, and by the way, they didn't need 4th downs to do it in this game. Not 1 4th down attempt in the game yesterday. On some level, that speaks to a first down offense that's problematic. But they just it's the quarterback more than anything else. And they do a good job on the 2nd and really longs of getting a good 2nd down play of 9, 10, 11, 12 yards to set up a 3rd and somewhat makeable. But these are down in distances, and we talked about this a lot last year, where you are now odds-wise, like basically, at a massive disadvantage. The odds of you punting on 2nd and 21 are very high, very high. 2nd and 16, very high. 2nd and 14, 2nd and 15, very high. Not for this team. Also on the list of things that I liked, they ran the ball well. Quarterback ran it well, but the running backs ran it well. We wanted to see that. Krosky, Merritt, McNichols ran it well. Eckler ran it well. 220 yards rushing, 6.9 yards per. I'll tell you what with Krosky, Merritt, and we'll see if Rodriguez gets opportunities. I did not think, and I didn't know the reason why, and we talked a lot about this last year. When you have a quarterback that gets presented as a potential runner, designed or option-wise on every single snap, unless he's under center. And even then, you can boot, into a run. Your running back should benefit a lot more than they did last year. And I think Krosky Merritt's going to benefit a lot from Jaden being a runner. The touchdown run was zone read. and he bounced it outside. It's a little bit different than you usually see because usually the quarterback's the one going to the outside after he takes it out of the running back's gut. Reading that DN. But I think that you've got running backs this year, including McNichols, who's always impressive when he's in there. But a good day rushing the football. Last on the list of things that I liked, I'm going to put Jaden Daniels on this list. It was not anywhere near one of his best games. It was far from, the long list of great games, really good games last year. But in a game like yesterday against a team that I think will prove out to be pretty good defensively. Now, they're going to struggle defensively if their offense doesn't move the ball at all because they'll just be on the field too often and for too long. But every offensive snap, Jaden being out there, his team has an advantage because of what a defense needs to do to account for him. They've got to account for him as a runner. They've got to account for him with a spy on almost every play. You have to keep him in the pocket. And even then, it doesn't really matter. There's just so much that a defense has to account for when he's out there, and he makes you pay, and Cliff makes you pay for that. Now, statistically yesterday, 19 of 30, 233 yards, a touchdown, no picks. He got away with one early, a little bit late and a little bit inaccurate to Debo on that out route. Incomplete, could have been a pick. He had 68 yards on 11 rushes. The rushes were a mix of scrambles, some very good ones, some quarterback draws, quarterback counters. He had zone read keepers. He's just a phenomenal runner. I thought he took a lot of hits yesterday, some unnecessary hits. I don't love that. I don't love the runs, and these are more, either straight quarterback counter or quarterback sweep. I don't like the plays where there is a chance and a good chance he's going to get tackled in a large heap in the middle of the field. Now, they'll tell you, I guarantee you, that when we run some of those counters, the action is taking the defense away, and we've got a big numbers advantage going to that side. And it's probably true. But, zone read keepers, he's out on the edge more times than not. He's got a chance to get out of bounds. He's got a chance to slide. Quarterback draws, you usually have a chance to slide as well. Look, he was accuracy-wise, not his best day. He was a little bit off, timing-wise, a little bit off with accuracy, threw behind. But still, there were at least 3 drops on balls that may not have been perfect, but they should have been caught. And then the plays that he did make. I mean, he missed Terry on the deep ball early too. Kind of like last year's opener against Tampa. And that could be a timing thing with Terry because he wasn't in camp. That was a great route by Terry to create the separation on that corner. And that could have easily been 6, and Jaden just missed him, overthrew him. Also, real quickly, I thought at least one of the 3 sacks was clearly on him, maybe 2. But some of the throws, man. All right, the first touchdown drive, the throw to Moore on the sideline, the slant to Noah Brown, the decisiveness in the quick release is just so impressive. The touchdown to Ertz, my God, that ball is out. It's out quickly. It is, I hate and dare to say, Aaron Rodgers, Marino-esque in terms of the release. It's so quick. The ball's out so quick with velocity. He really throws slants. He throws over the middle. Remember, that was a complaint. I mean, they just didn't have a lot of over the middle throws because they didn't have 3rd and 6s a lot at LSU that year. They were just crushing people on 1st and 2nd down. But anyway, I digress. His release is lightning quick, and he's so decisive, and he sees it so quickly. That touchdown throw to Ertz, loved it. Loved the way they designed it to get Ertz on a linebacker with Jalen Lane, and Ertz isolated to that, split to that left side. How about the throw where he extended the play and threw to Debo for, I think, 17 yards? Had that 3rd and 11 throw to Debo on the final drive of the first half. The scramble on 3rd and 7 before Krosky Merritt's touchdown run. I mean, just looking through, I had him as a B+. I had him as a B plus. It was far from his best game, but most of his games last year were A-level games. I'll be interested to see, not that it's the Bible, but I always am interested in the quarterback PFF numbers for Washington. Let's see if anybody's put up any of the numbers, because I thought Jaden was every bit of a B plus, worst case in the game. I'll find it. All right, the list of things that I didn't like and other observations, and then your calls, I promise, at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Window Nation's got a lot going on right now. It's one of their most popular offers of the year. Buy two and get the next two free. Plus, they give you the option of not paying anything and not charging you interest for 2 full years. If you've got older windows, they're probably inefficient. You can get energy efficient new windows that'll make your home look great from Window Nation. That's my recommendation. Call them at 866-90-NATION or head to windownation.com. They are unbelievable when it comes to servicing you, the customer. They've got an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau. They've got a 96% customer satisfaction rating. They've got over 45,000 5-star reviews. They've installed over 2 million windows across the country, and they give you a lifetime warranty on those windows. They were recently ranked highest on Forbes' list of best window installation companies. Window Nation is a company you should give a shot to if you've been thinking about new windows. Call them at 866-90-NATION. Mention my name. They'll come out and give you, in an hour or less, a free, no obligation, no pressure estimate. Buy two, get two free is the offer, and you don't have to pay anything until the year 2027. Hurry, the sale ends soon. Call them 866-90-NATION or go to windownation.com.
All right. Happy Monday, everybody. It is September 8th. We are just past the week 1 Sunday of football season. Let's get into it. The Commanders, they beat the Giants 21-6. The biggest story of the game, the revamped defensive line and defense as a whole looked really solid, keeping Russell Wilson in check. First time a Commanders defense has held an opposing team to 0 touchdowns since they beat the Cowboys 25-3 in week 7 of 2020. The Mystics, they were drubbed by the Indiana Fever 94-65 yesterday in the Nats. They beat the Cubs by a score of 6-3. Mason Thompson credited with the win, and Jose Ferrer gets the save after the Nats. They score 5 runs in the top of the 9th inning, including a 3-run home run from Josh Bell. They will take on Miami Marlins tonight. They head down for an away game in Miami. First pitch is at 6:40 tonight. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:10 on the Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Tighten up here in the red area. They knew they were going to move the ball to Giants defense. They got to limit points down here.
Daniels over the middle. Caught! Touchdown, Zach Ertz.
I loved when Doc, during the preseason, referred to Ertz as Jaden's binky. It's one of my favorite Doc-isms. Yeah, Ertz is Jaden's binky. 3 catches, 26 yards for Zach Ertz in game 1, but had that touchdown on just, I'll tell you, when this dude is, and he rarely doesn't see it, when he sees it at quarterback, that ball is out and it is a laser. And that was a really good throw in between 2 defenders. Really good design on the play as well. All right, I've gone through the things that I liked, obviously, in the game yesterday. It started with the defense. Now we move to the things that I did not like. This, was not a pretty game. It was incredibly sloppy, and the sloppiness cost points, whether it was the penalties on defense and the changing of field position because of it, even though they didn't give up points to the Giants. Yards can be a very hollow or a mistake stat to go to, but sometimes they're not. Washington had 432 yards and 25 first downs in the game. When your defense plays the way it did, even without the takeaways, you should end up with more than 21 points. And they didn't end up with more than 21 points because they were sloppy. We start with the penalties, 12 in total, a lot of them on defense too. A couple of penalties that were just, not wise. Lattimore slamming Robinson to the ground. You had on one play 2 players jump off sides. A lot of the player penalties were on defense. It cost them field position yards. It was just sloppy. We saw this in the opener against the Patriots. Somebody pointed out, told you, saw it in the opener. Yeah, the problem with that is the players that committed the penalties in the game against the Patriots a month ago aren't on the team anymore. The players that played in the game yesterday didn't play against the Patriots, but too many penalties. We'll play some of the Dan Quinn sound for you, but this was certainly an area that, was designated as have to clean up for sure. I thought they got away with some missed calls against them. Payne definitely hit Wilson to the head on a ball that Wilson got out of there. Everybody was looking around from the Giants standpoint. I thought Noah I got away with a defensive pass interference and a face mask. There was a hold, a blatant offensive hold missed on Washington, and there were giant penalties missed as well. But you're not going to win a lot of games against good teams with that many penalties more often than not, especially when you combine those penalties with drop passes. At least 3. Ertz on the opening drive. Debo, that ball was high, but I think catchable. Lane dropped one. I think there was another one too, but Jaden wasn't perfect with his accuracy on some of the throws, but they were all catchable. You can't use up all your timeouts with 8 minutes and 10 seconds to go in the game. It didn't hurt them yesterday. A lot of this sloppiness, bottom line is, didn't hurt them with respect to the final score or the outcome. A game that, despite it being 14-6 and the Giants having the ball, did you ever really think that Washington would lose the game? I know there's that fear of they let them hang around too long. Giants stink, but they let them hang around, and now all of a sudden they're going to pay for it. Yeah, it happens, but when you're watching a game and you can see that the other team just can't make actual forward progress on offense, you're going to need some fluky things to lose that game. But it doesn't change the fact that, penalties, drop passes, and using up all your timeouts, they look disorganized at times, on offense, using those timeouts. When you sub, you can't sub so late as to allow the defense to, and the defense will take their time. And now you're into that play clock situation. I mentioned it, but I thought Debo's touchdown run was very close to a delay of game. So that would be, that there are 4 on the top, 4 of sloppiness items from the game. The penalties, the drop passes, the timeouts. But a big one was what happened at the end of the first half. I actually, if you were watching the game, Brady felt they made a mistake calling their last timeout with 28 seconds left. I did not. I thought that's where they should have called the timeout. The risk they took was the quarterback draw on 2nd and 10, and the result of that play is what led to rushing the 3rd and 1 and Jaden ending up grounding the ball, which then ran off the last few seconds. Now, first of all, let me just mention this. Everything about Quinn and clock management, end of half, he errs on the side of being very aggressive. I don't mind that at all. Like we saw last year, with this offense, there is a belief. You got no timeouts, 30 seconds to go, but you're starting at your own 11-yard line. We're going for it. We're going for field goal range. I like that mindset, depending on context, score, et cetera, team, opponent. So they get down there and they are on a quarterback draw, and I don't know if that's a check. That may have been a check. I would imagine it's a check. You've got 2 plays called, and based on what Jaden sees, quarterback draw is an option. That QB draw, I guarantee you, they think it's got a chance to score. Worst case, it's going to pick up a first down, and then you can get up and clock the ball and have 17, 18 seconds left to run 3 plays to the end zone, and if you don't score a touchdown, kick a field goal. I don't hate the call. It's just that the result of it being a 9-yard gain and setting up 3rd and 1 led to the scenario in which they had to hurry. They wanted to get one more snap off for a touchdown opportunity, and Jaden had nowhere to go with it and unloaded it in an area where a receiver wasn't, and they called grounding. So Jaden's got to do a better job of getting a ball somewhere near a receiver, even if it's way over the receiver's head and out of the end zone. You can't throw to empty space to avoid, a sack and an end of half, or he's got to get outside the pocket and throw it away. It was an unfortunate end. I don't hate where they called the timeout at 28 seconds. I don't hate the quarterback draw. I think Jaden's got a chance for big plays on quarterback draws, especially with the field spread. And that one, unfortunately, got 9 yards instead of 10. If it gets 10, you get up, you clock it, and you have, two downs, and then on 4th down, kick a field goal if you don't score on the next 2. Didn't happen that way. Also on the list of things I didn't like, I didn't think it was a great day for the special teams. There were some big hits. Nick Ballore had a massive hit. Man, that dude hits. McNichols hits on special teams. Reeves hits on special teams. Reeves had a big hit defensively. They had a punt blocked in the game. It resulted in a 30-something yard punt, but Abdul Carter got a hand on it. He almost got another one. They're going to have to shore that up. They got nothing on punt returns. Jalen Lane, the excitement I was told with this coach, with this front office when Jalen Lane was there in the 4th round because of his punt return ability and wide receiver, but they thought his immediate impact as a rookie would be as a punt returner. 1 game, 2 punt returns, 0 yards. I'm not saying that he can't do it. Obviously, you're going to give him plenty of chances. There was a good kickoff return by McCaffrey. Tressway had a decent day. I'll tell you, here's something that I think, you can't make these mistakes. And I saw it a lot around the league yesterday. The new rules of the touchback coming out to the 35-yard line should mean 100%. If that ball is kicked into the end zone, I mean, in the air, because if it hits before the goal line and goes into the end zone, then if you don't return it, it comes out to the 20. But if that ball sails into the end zone, you should never bring it out now that the 35-yard line is the starting field position. Never. Think about that. 1 yard deep in the end zone to get it to the 35 is a 36-yard return. It's a really good return. And Deebo Samuel on the opening kickoff took it out from a yard deep in the end zone, and they started at their own 21 instead of the 35-yard line. That's 14 yards of field position. It matters. Now, with this offense, it doesn't always seem to matter, but you got to play the right way. And I know he was anxious first game, wanted to prove something back on kickoff returns, but any kick this year that sails into the end zone, and it's hard. If you watched yesterday, Thursday night, Friday night as well, it is hard to have that ball land in the landing zone between the 20 and the goal line consistently. It is. So any kick that sails into the end zone, man, that should be first and 10 at your own 35. There should be a blanket rule. You're not bringing it out. And Debo brought out the opening kickoff. All right, I promise. Your calls next. I've got a few other observations from the game, and then we'll get to your calls. I see you on hold. Stay there. We do have a line open if you want to jump in at 301-230-0980. What'd you like? What didn't you like? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. You can watch us on our Team 980 YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there.
Throwing, catching, blocking, tackling, running. You can design up all the scheme plays you want in the world, but you got to do the fundamentals right.
Here's Oshetsky off a great punch. And gets caught at the 15. We heard that all the way up here.
You know, last year, Quinn talked a lot about, developing this culture, this identity, and he wanted to play fast. He wanted to be a physical football team, a very competitive football team that, the opponent, win or lose, knew they were in a game. And I think we saw that. And I think it was that sort of tone over and over again last year was set more so by the special teams than it was even the defense. Yesterday, it was set by both the defense and the special teams. That dude, Nick Ballore, has been hitting people since he arrived on special teams. McNichols hits people on special teams. Reeves really gets after people on special teams. They have been an excellent coverage team, with the exception of that Cowboy game last year. And, remember last year when the touchback came out to the 30-yard line, Washington still was a team that tried to kick into the landing zone and cover kicks more than almost anybody in the league. They felt it was a tone setter, and they thought they would be good at it, and average starting field position, they would benefit from it. And now that it's coming out to the 35, all those kicks are going to go into that landing zone. But yeah, they averaged, the Giants did 20.5 yards on kickoff returns. Pretty good job. And just 8 yards on punt returns. Washington just has to get better in two areas. It's one game, every season's different, understood. But last year, they didn't have their own return units give them advantages in games, and they didn't take the ball away enough defensively last year. If they can increase takeaways, and they didn't get one yesterday, and they can get bigger field flips on returns, they should, have a really good, average points per game. number at the end of the season. All right, 301-230-0980. Your chance in a moment. Here were just a couple of other observations. I mentioned, Krosky Merritt over Rodriguez. I think that is significant. They might dress 4 running backs in other weeks. I think they had to bring up that extra wide receiver and Chris Moore. That may have impacted Chris Rodriguez's ability to be on the game day roster. But Krosky Merritt was the selection, and he made them look good for that, no doubt. How did they lose that challenge on Terry's 3rd and 5 catch, second drive in the second half, in the third quarter? That looked like a catch to me. I thought that was a really good challenge. I was surprised when they came back from commercial and that call on the field was not overturned. Terry played the most snaps, if you're wondering, and I looked this up during the break. Terry actually was out there. We were wondering whether or not, he would take the normal number of snaps offensively. Well, he had more snaps than any wide receiver on the team yesterday. He had 55 snaps, 79% of the offensive snaps. Debo was second, 1 less snap. And then Noah Brown was out there for 47% of the snaps. But Terry got a full allotment in game 1 despite the long holdout / hold in. And then what else did I have here? Oh, and I looked up the snap counts on him. I made the note after yesterday's game that Johnny Newton, because I was told early, in the summer that they were expecting big things out of last year's second round pick, especially as a pass rusher. And Johnny Newton, I made a note that I've seen him on the field, but not as much as I thought I would see him on the field. Now, he was out there for 26 snaps. It's actually more than I thought he was out there for. I thought he may have been out there for like 10 snaps. But he was out there for 38% of the snaps. Now, in terms of defensive tackles, Payne played on 66% of the snaps, Kinlaw on 59% of the snaps. And then Newton and Goldman basically played the same number of snaps in the rotation, each getting 26 snaps or 38% of it. Bottom line is, I think Johnny Newton's got a chance to be a really good player, especially as a pass rusher. So I was happy to hear that about him. I thought that, he did a decent job against, as a tackler when he was in there on a few plays. But I'm hopeful that 95, that's his number, is going to be a big factor. Now, it looks like Kinlaw Payne could be the true strength of this D line. We'll see how it evolves. But I just made the note during the game. I'm like, I just haven't seen as much of Johnny Newton as I thought I would. 26 snaps is more than I thought he was out there for. But still, it was 26 out of 68 defensive snaps they were out there for. All right, 301-230-0980. What'd you like? What didn't you like? First of all, before I get to calls, Max, your chance. What did you like? What didn't you like from the game?
So there were a lot of things that I liked on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, you kind of touched on it. The defensive line, this newly revamped front, like Javon Kinlaw and why am I blanking on Deron Payne's name? But they played great in the middle. They were really staunch defensively, especially in the run game. Another 2 guys that I think deserve a lot of credit, Quan Martin and Will Harris. Yesterday, Will Harris was a crash dummy.
He was excellent.
He played great. He's really versatile. I'm very excited to see kind of how he grows into this defense. And then Quan Martin is definitely taking that next step that Dan Quinn has been hyping up all offseason. So, I mean, those 2 guys, him and Deron Payne and Quan Martin were, vaunted by Dan Quinn most of this offseason. They seem to be taking those next steps. But the trenches, just on both offensive and defensive side of the ball, I thought the offensive line looked really good. Josh Connerly played pretty well. There was only Brian Burns hit him with a little shimmy shake and slid past him. But that was kind of the one play that he got on. Other than that, he was pretty solid. So I was a big fan of this offensive line as well. So, yeah, trench play. That was kind of my big takeaway. There are a lot of mistakes that they got to clean up, penalties and things like that. Getting on the same page offensively. Jaden and Terry got to clean it up a little bit. But Jaden even said in his post-game presser that they were doubling Terry a lot, and Terry's kind of earned that, especially with the big contract he just signed. But yeah, I think there's a few things to clean up here and there, but the trenches looked great, and that's where you build from.
All right, let's get to the phone lines, 301-230-0980. Let's start with our guy Joe in Springfield. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Good, Joe.
All right, I was at the game yesterday, so I seem a little hoarse. I apologize if my voice is going in and out. But anyway, what I like, Jaden Daniels and Deebo Samuel. I mean, I understand it's one game, it's week one, but the combination was working well yesterday. I know Deebo dropped one or two passes, but he redeemed himself, especially on that reverse. And I love to see more of that. I mean, he wanted that touchdown. That's why he just dove into the end zone. It's a great combination, and it looks like it's going to get even better. Bobby Wagner had a game yesterday. I mean, whether it was tackling the backfield, a big stoppage on third down, or even when he did a hit on Russell Wilson when Russell Wilson was going out of bounds, he wanted this game. It's really clear that the team wanted to bring him back for his leadership and determination. Deron Payne played well. I mean, he looked like he was almost like a one wrecking crew out there. I mean, and he looked like when he tipped that pass, it looked like he was trying to intercept it as well, Kevin, at one point.
Yeah.
What I didn't like, the penalties, and I understand too many mistakes, especially holding penalties and, pass interferences. The roughing the passer, Kevin, late on Bobby Wagner on Russell Wilson, that's a ticky-tack call because how are you supposed to hit a quarterback? And it looked like soft to me from where I was sitting, but
it was questionable. It's certainly not the worst call I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, but, short work week. And one side note, look, I understand some fans are going to say, well, Terry McLaurin, I mean, and he did have the most snaps yesterday for a receiver, and yet he didn't get involved much because he was double teamed. But he started off slowly last year, and look what happened. And Jaden Daniels is going to spread the ball around to all the receivers on this offense because we have more than one playmaker now in Deebo Samuel. So it's a work in progress.
I think that's
so
true.
People need to get up too early. So
thanks, Joe. Yeah, I think that's true. I think there is a lot of belief in spreading it around. How many times did we say last year, or a lot of you said, how do you not get Terry McLaurin, 5 targets in the first quarter? Like, you just have to start off that way. It's not the way they believe they need to do it. It's just not. They got a lot of dudes that they think they can, with the ball in their hands, can do things, and they've added a couple in Deebo, in Bill, offensively. You know who they like a lot? And I think if they didn't have an Eckler or a Krosky Merritt, and it was even more of a running back by committee, which I think, we kind of thought there was a chance it would be, I'm going to tell you that as a person and as a player, they have great belief in Jeremy McNichols, not just as a special teamer, but as a runner as well. I just think there's a belief in the scheme and a belief with this quarterback that there's a lot that gets elevated around him. But let's go to our guy Bones. Bones, your reaction to their season opening win yesterday against the Giants.
Man, shout out to Matt, and thank you guys for taking my call, man. Man, I'm just so impressed with how that defensive front four stood up, man, in that game yesterday, man. We got some Kinlaw, Armstrong, Payne. They look really good, and I'm impressed with Trey Amos, Mikey Sarah still, and you can see the big difference in Marshawn Lattimore. As far as what the people talking about, Jaden missing some receivers and overthrow Terry and all that. Man, look, yesterday was a preseason game, man. We were still in preseason mode, man. You people need to hold still, man, because I'm telling you, man, this ship is getting ready to take off, man. So fasten your seatbelt and hold on, man. We can ready to do something real big. I love you guys, Kevin, man. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, look, the crowd was awesome, too, Kevin. I was at the game. The crowd was awesome. I'm trying to get Sabah to come on back to the game. Thank you, guys. Love you. Peace.
Good call, Bones. Let's go to Ian. Ian, go ahead.
I, too, was at the game. Rare appearance for me. And
really?
My simple takeaway, it was a kid's birthday.
I didn't think you left your house very often.
Only to see you at at your shows, Kevin.
Okay.
So my observation is very simple. Russell Wilson is not an NFL quarterback. He's on his third team in 3 years for a reason. And I was shocked that Jackson Dart didn't come in. With that being said, your job is to win. You win a home game. You're winning a division game. It's a great way to start the season. I'd rather be 1-0 than 0-1. And yes, I think they will improve, as will every team. But it just shows you the impact of a quarterback. And Jaden Daniels didn't even, like you said, had a B+, a B game, and yet you felt like they could win the game with him. And on the other side, they didn't. And it just shows you the impact of an NFL quarterback trumps everything. It doesn't matter who your running back is. It doesn't matter who the O-line is. The VORP on the remaining rosters are so minimal. And we saw it all across the league yesterday. Go through almost every game, and you could always say, who had the better quarterback? That's the team that won. And Washington had the better quarterback, and they won yesterday.
Yeah, I think in yesterday's case, the quarterback disparity was really incredible. Russell Wilson, I agree with that statement, and I said that in my recap. I think he looks like at best a backup quarterback in the NFL, and I think that it's the reason he's on his third team, as you mentioned, and I talked about in 3 years. They're gonna turn to, I guess, I don't know this for sure. There seems to be some belief in Jackson Dart. Personally, I thought he was kind of a creation of Lane Kiffin in college, but we'll see at the NFL level. Daboll's actually a good play caller and a good offensive guy. But they don't have a shot offensively to be very good with Russell Wilson looking, by the way, skittish. Now, part of that was what Washington was doing defensively. Totally get it. Part of that is he doesn't have his best offensive lineman in front of him in Andrew Thomas, but he just doesn't look like a starter anymore. I totally agree with that. And guess what? Thursday night, they're going to play a starting quarterback in the NFL in Jordan Love. And we'll find out over the next few weeks because Geno Smith, is a capable starting NFL quarterback. He's the opponent, in week 3. And then you get Penix Jr. We'll see. Then you get Justin Herbert, in week 5. So you're going to get, 3 of the next 4 weeks much better situations. And we'll find out whether yesterday was a defensive trend and something that, is, hey, it's clear they're much better. They're going to be a good defense this year. And if they are, man, I think the upside is massive. Or if yesterday was part that they are better, but it was also that the other team has a guy that really at this point shouldn't be in the league as a starting QB. Let's go to Junie in Frederick. Junie, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Kevin? Appreciate you taking my call.
Sure.
Hey, dude, I was at the game too, and I say, I enjoyed the game. We had I'm satisfied with the W, but the only small thing that I didn't like was seeing Debo back there returning kickoffs. You know what I'm saying? I know he has the ability, to maybe take one back to the house, but I just don't like the risk of energy for him. When Debo gets hurt, he gets hurt. You know what I'm saying? And he's out for portions of the season, and we need him, and I don't want to see him get concussions or anything back there returning kickoff. But I think McCaffrey had a good return.
Yeah, that's interesting what you said. I think that the kickoff returns with the rules that were put into place last year are viewed as much less of a high impact play and much more of a line of scrimmage play. And I think that's why Debo's back there. Debo would not be back there underneath the old rules where players are getting, a 50-yard running start downfield, or actually a 65-yard running start downfield. I don't think that would be the case. But I think you see a lot of running backs. You see a lot of starting wide receivers or weapons offensively being used in that role. I didn't like his decision to return the opening kickoff. That ball should have been at the 35-yard line. It went into the end zone, sailed a yard deep in the end zone. Yeah. Thanks, Junie. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Anthony in D.C. Anthony, go ahead.
So I like the defensive performance. I'll say that if we can play this way or better Thursday, then I'll be a strong believer in the defense can be what we hoped it to be for the whole season.
Right.
As far, go ahead.
No, I agree with that. We need to see it against a much better offensive football team and quarterback in particular.
Right. As for what I don't like, people need to start thinking critically. When you if on offense, if you're lucky, you get 60 to 65 plays a game. Depending on how the defense is playing, a particular player could be double team or they could be single. Jaden said Terry was doubled most of the game. I couldn't see it on the TV, but I believe him. Secondly, between running and passing, they had 30 runs and they had 30 passes in the run. The rest were runs. So there are only so many balls to go around. If you remember,
but keep in mind, because he scrambled on 6 of them, there were like 36 called pass plays and about 25 or 26 called run plays. I actually thought they could have run the ball more yesterday than they did. I'm talking about with running backs. But not looking at those straight, pass attempts, rush numbers can be misleading, especially with a quarterback like Jaden, who's going to scramble a lot on called pass plays. But anyway, go ahead.
That's true, but I think the Giants showed you what the lack of a second option looks like. If they couldn't get the ball to neighbors, they had nothing else going on. So you got running plays. You may have your own opinion of Noah Brown, but last year Noah Brown was a viable second option.
I agree.
So now you got Debo, and then you got Jalen Lane. So
what's your point?
The distribution will come. People need to stop getting on Terry after one game. Is what my point is.
Who's getting on him after? Who's getting on him? I haven't heard who's getting on him.
There are fans calling different shows saying, Terry was basically a non-participant and things of that nature.
Well, I didn't think that at all.
Distribution will be there. No,
yeah, I think
don't
he
think
should have had a third catch, overturned on the challenge.
Right, but he had
they've got a lot of
ideas
offensively, to your point, which is what I think the point you were making is that there are a lot of options. You only get 60 to 65 offensive snaps. You're going to run it on half of them, hopefully. Yeah, we get that as NFL fans. I didn't think Terry was a non-participant yesterday. By the way, he blocks too. Don't forget that.
Exactly.
He's always been a willing blocker.
There have been calls on different shows. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Anthony, thank you. Yeah, did you want to make another point? You can go ahead and do it. Okay. All right. Everybody on hold, we'll do another segment of calls, 301-230-0980. What'd you like? What didn't you like? There's another observation I made that I wrote down that I didn't mention about the pass rush, specific to who's on the field and when. I'll mention that when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
Daniels sees it, gets rid of it. Eckler. Good move. Austin Eckler cuts back. Spinning inside the 25. Still going. Austin Eckler for a first down. That was sensational.
Loved that play, that catch and run by Eckler. So here is something that I haven't mentioned on the show today. So I've now gone back and looked at the Giants' 3rd and longs. All right. So basically 3rd and 8 or longer in the game to see who the pass rushers were. This is something we talked about, all off season, even before Von Miller was added. And then it's like, well, Von Miller is going to be in there in 3rd and long. But who else was going to be out there with him? I thought Luvu and Miller had a chance to be their best pass rushers. I liked Armstrong as a pass rusher this year. And then I was wondering what they would do with the rest, Payne, et cetera. So they had basically 5 3rd and long situations in this game, the Giants did. And on 4 of them, Luvu, Armstrong, Payne, Miller. Luvu and Miller on the outside, Payne and Armstrong on the inside. And then on one of them, Kinlaw was in there for Payne. So they basically think on their best pass rushers are Luvu, Miller, Payne, and Armstrong. And then Kinlaw was in there on one of those 3rd and longs for Duran. Duran had one of his knockdown passes, on forcing Wilson out of the pocket and knocking down that pass. What's interesting in watching those 3rd and longs is nobody's in a 3-point stance. They're all up at the line of scrimmage, and there were several instances of stunts. But if you're wondering who they think, based on this first game, could be matchup related, etc., who they think their 3rd and long, let's go get them without blitz pressure. They did not send 5 in any of those 3rd and longs. In fact, to be honest with you, and I'd have to go look at this, and unless the numbers out there, Next Gen might have it or somebody else might have it, I didn't think that they pressured with more than 4 a lot in the game, period. I thought they were aggressive, fast, tackled well, physical, but I would bet you that their blitz percentage was low yesterday. I may be wrong about that. See if you can find blitz percentage numbers. I think Next Gen puts them out there. Or is it the one that the Post uses, True Media or whatever? I don't think we have access to those numbers. But in terms of, because I thought there was a chance, honestly, that Johnny Newton would be used in those situations inside as a pass rusher. I thought that there was, a chance that, a guy like Wise would be out there. But no, the 4 that they, at least based on this opener, that they feel like are the best opportunities in a 4-man rush on 3rd and long, Duran and Armstrong inside, Luvu and Miller outside, some stunt, action, and nobody in a 3-point stance. They're all up at the line of scrimmage, which is interesting. All right, back to your calls. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Let's go to Jalen. Jalen, your reaction to the 21-6 season opening win over the Giants.
Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Jalen.
So I was very pleased with the season opener, and I know a lot of people have mentioned the defense and the run game, but I wanted to highlight the special teams. I thought Matt Gay was perfect. So it was nice to finally have a season opener without any hiccups in the kicking game.
Well, he only had 3 extra points. Didn't attempt a field goal, but he made all 3 extra points.
And that's the main thing. As little as it may sound, but extra points are just as important as field goal attempts. So it was nice to have a clean game from Matt Gay. Nick Baloy stood out on kickoff coverage. Luke McCaffrey, it was nice to see him get back there on the kickoff return and get some good yards. No turnovers on offense is another thing that I like. Despite the penalties and certain setbacks that we had, it was nice to see them make plays when they had to make it. Obviously, with the defensive line, the run defense was good. Both lines of scrimmage, for that matter. I like how the offensive line controlled the line of scrimmage also in the run game. And I just like our explosiveness overall, with our running backs, with Bill, Eckler, and then McNichols. And you see Debo and how he adds, a level of dynamic explosiveness and ability to the run game. So top to bottom, I thought it was a very solid performance overall. And hopefully defensively, we can continue to be consistent within the way that we played, because I think that that's going to go a long way with us taking the next step this year. So overall, I was pleased, and I'm looking forward to Thursday to see if we can, build upon that performance. So thank you guys for taking my call.
Thanks
for
the call. Two things on your call. Number one, Debo only had one carry in the game. It was the touchdown run, but he was a potential runner on several plays, so that's important. Number two is, one thing in you mentioning special teams that I didn't point out as it relates to Matt Gay, two of his kicks were touchbacks, bring it out to the 35. I think it's really imperative, especially for a team like Washington that feels like they cover kicks very well, and I think they did that last year with the exception of the Dallas game at home. Matt Gay's got to be, he had 4 kickoffs in the game yesterday, right? 3 touchdowns. So 3 scores plus the second half kickoff. 2 of them were touchbacks. You cannot give teams the ball at the 35-yard line, especially if you're confident in the way you cover kicks. So Matt Gay, I saw this throughout the league yesterday. Kickers are trying sometimes to get it into that landing zone, but the ball's sailing into the end zone. I guess it's harder than we think for that ball to land in that landing area. You can't have it land short of the landing area or the ball automatically gets whistled dead and it comes out to the 40. But you don't want, especially special teams wise, if you feel like with guys like Ballore and Reeves and McNichols that you cover kicks well, you can't have 2 touchbacks. It's the Giants, so it didn't matter. Giving them the ball at Washington's 35-yard line wasn't going to make a difference in yesterday's game. But you can't give the Packers the ball at their own 35 to start 2 drives in a game. Let's go to Aiden. Aiden's calling from Hagerstown. Aiden, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, you got me?
I got you, Aiden.
So, really, mine will be one short thing. Want to talk about Bill. And then kind of the offense as a whole. That 42-yard run by Bill at the end of the game, I think that was the biggest example of why I personally felt like trading Brian Robinson was a good idea. I loved Brian Robinson while he was here, did a lot of good things for the team, but to just be honest about it.
Well, yeah, that's why they did it.
The ball.
Yeah, they did it because he was going to be costly.
You were going to be excited if he could get 8 yards. You were excited. Now with what Bill showed, Eckler showed, Debo, Terry, and Jaden, those are the 5 guys that are going to touch the ball the most. Every time the ball is snapped, there's a touchdown possibility, no matter where you are on the field. Doesn't matter. And when B-Rob was in the backfield and taking handoffs, that wasn't the way it is. And I think that just really shows that Cliff really wants, and probably the team as a whole, wanted to take the explosiveness of the offense up a notch from where it was last year, which I think should really excite everybody. Because, like I said, every time the ball snaps, doesn't matter who's in the backfield, who's out wide, you have a chance to go the whole way in one play, no matter what now.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Appreciate that. I'll tell you one thing on that run, the one from the goal line. First of all, blocking up front's exceptional, but his vision to see that, there's an outside cut and then an up cut up the field, and he's got burst. He's got very good vision. You could see that from his tape in New Mexico. Is he the fastest back in the league? No, but he's got a really good burst for sure to get, after that quick decision, quick cutback to make teams pay. Let's go to our guy G from the shop. G, what's up?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Everybody that's on Bill line and saying he this good and that's why Brian Robinson is gone, that came down to money, man. They seen
a lot of it did.
Bill's skill set. Yeah, that's a fact because they see what Bill did and they think they can get the same that they got out of Brian Robinson for less money. And like you said, he do got more of a burst than Brian Robinson, but Brian Robinson got better vision than people give him credit for. Let's get that straight. But the Terry pundit, my man Anthony called the Terry pundits is always going to call in and say you didn't do enough especially after contract disputes, because people looking at Terry with the contract dispute, they wanted to see him with 8 catches, 2 touchdowns for 400 yards. And let's just be realistic, because we talked all season about running back by committee, but JD5 is so good, he makes everybody better. We doing wide receiver by committee and pass catches by committee also. We look like the superior team too, Kevin, and that's good because we was playing a division rival. We usually make them dog fights, even when the teams ain't as good on our level. We make them dog fights, and we clearly was the more stronger, meaner team on all 3 sides of the football. You know what I'm saying? And there was only 2 plays I could say we got punked, and that was the 2 Burns sacks. That's the only times, and we responded well. I think I see a football team in one game that saw our strength as controlling the football and the tempo and flow of the game, and we nipped that Achilles heel that we had last year by stopping the run. Because I don't care what nobody say, Kinlaw ain't get a lot of credit, but he was that man is scary out there.
His presence was felt. I got something for you. And I got something probably for Paulie too. Neil and Rockville mentioned this to me, and I actually think there's some truth into this. You know how I've talked about how Mahomes over the years sometimes looks bored and he makes things more interesting than really they should. Like he almost wants it to be kind of one of those crazy plays that he extricates himself from a difficult spot. Neil and Rockville said, do you see any of that with Jaden? It's not that I see that with Jaden, but I see a confidence level that's so high that he's not fearful of like negative high-risk plays and the results from them because he feels like the next snap he can overcome it. And so, A, do you see that? B, I think that they need to button that up because even though they overcome 2nd and longs all the time, I don't want him to take unnecessary shots and put other, players, at risk in some of the plays where he just maybe is trying to have more fun. Do you know what Neil's saying?
No, you're exactly right. Shout out my man Neil from Rockville. Anytime I need a lawyer, I'm going to call him. But he's exactly right, and that's how I know y'all done been around players that really can play. Because when you you said it, Kevin, it's confidence. Confidence, I'm going to make this play, and even if I don't, I'm going to make the next play. And when I do make this play that don't nobody think I'm going to make, people going to be tantalized. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And to Paulie, and to all the people that started betting, because y'all there's too many new bettors out here, Sheehan.
Oh, God,
and I bet
so
on
true.
football. Hey, to all y'all new bettors and Paulie, don't text me or call me if you got my phone number and the game ain't over because he jinxed my ticket to the Ravens game.
There's nothing worse than that. There's nothing worse when one of your guys texts you and says, "Hey, good call on that game," and there's still 10 minutes left. Don't ever do that to me. Don't ever.
And then the next text he sent when the game over, talking about something I taught him. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Yeah, you dummy. Lose my number, Paulie.
See ya. Speaking of Paulie, he is on hold. Let's go right to him. Paulie, go ahead. Did you hear? What did you make of what Neil and Rockville suggested? Because we talked about Mahomes. He gets bored because of his confidence. Do you see any of that in Jaden?
Hell to the W. How you doing, big guy? I'm still here laughing, man. But answer your damn phone, G. I wouldn't text you.
Well, you can't text somebody before the game is over if he's got a bet on the game.
Hey, listen, man, he bets on every game. What are you talking about? I wouldn't talk to him at all if that's the case. Yeah. Hey, but look, what you're saying is that's what separates these guys, that confidence. And another thing, those guys, they're not just doing it on the whim. They practice that. Jaden is practicing them passes with Debo. He's practicing them passes with Terry. Well, when Terry was there. So it's not something he's just trying on the field. This is from repetition. That's why he's not scared to make those type passes or to try to make those passes because he's practiced that over and over and over in his mind. I mean, when he's at home, he got the virtual glasses on, right?
Yeah.
He practiced this stuff. So,
but you know what I'm saying.
that's
Sometimes he makes a play into something that maybe it doesn't need to be made into because he's just capable of it and he's confident in his ability to do it. What'd you think of the game? Go ahead. Give me your quick take.
Hey, you know what my take was? It was about up front on offense and on defense. We dominated up front on offense and defense. How many times did you hear Dexter Lawrence's name yesterday? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like he arguably the best player. Arguably was the best player on the field on defensive player. But I told you, I know it's only one game, but I told you all offseason, I said, this defense is going to be ferocious this year. Telling you, we talked about it the other day, Kinlaw and Payne. Payne is in a different role this year. He's not the guy. He's not the guy that's going to eat up the double teams. He's the guy that's going to get a lot of one-on-ones. And you've seen it come to fruition yesterday, man. So, first game, a little shaky, a little rusty, you know what I mean? But, hey, you can't hit on all cylinders in week one, So it's something to build on. We got 2 days to get better, and it's off to Green Bay, man. I'm ready. Hell to the W, baby.
Yeah, can't wait for Thursday night. If you're on hold, stay there. We'll take a few more calls. Ben will join us at 12. We'll go around the NFL next hour, and you'll hear some of Dan Quinn's post-game presser as well. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. Don't forget, you can watch us on our Team 980 YouTube channel. When you get there, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button.
All right, happy September 8th. It is Victory Monday for all Commanders fans in the area. I am Max Ames. Here's what's happening. The Commanders, aforementioned, they beat the Giants by a score of 21-6. The biggest story of the game is the revamped defensive line looking solid, keeping Russell Wilson in check. First time a Commanders defense has held an opposing team to 0 touchdowns since they beat the Cowboys 25-3 in Week 7 of 2020. It was the first time the Commanders have not allowed a touchdown in a Week 1 game for the first time since 1999. The Mystics, they were drubbed by the Indiana Fever yesterday, 94-65. The Nats, they beat the Cubs 6-3. Mason Thompson credited with the win. Jose A. Ferrer gets the save after the Nats score 5 runs in the top of the 9th inning, including a Josh Bell 3-run home run. The Nats head down to Miami tonight to take on the Marlins. First pitch at 6:40. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:10 on 106.7 The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Den's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Ben Standig is going to join us at noon. We'll go around the NFL next hour. It was quite the week one. By the way, starting with Friday night's game after we had spent much of Friday's early show talking about Cowboys-Eagles. How about the Justin Herbert performance in Brazil? A lot to talk about in terms of the rest of the games, including a game last night that truly was epic. And we may look back after, the next 4 months of regular season and say that was the best regular season game of the year. It's going to be hard to top it for last night's Buffalo comeback to beat the Ravens 41-40. By the way, there was an interesting sort of John Harbaugh situation at the end of that game. So we'll get to that as well. Dan Quinn, we've not played any of his sound post-game. He also is going to meet the media, I think, a little bit earlier than he did last year at 12:30. We'll try to carry some of that, or at least get you some of it before the end of the show. All right, a few more calls, and then we'll get to Ben. DC in Roanoke. DC, go ahead.
Great day, Kevin.
What's up, DC?
Man, everything is good, brother. I'm definitely excited because I saw that line of scrimmage yesterday. We dominated on the offense and defensive side. Of course, that led to us running the ball well, running by committee. I think that's going to be good for us throughout the season instead of just having a lead back, all of these guys sharing their carries like that. And with the long season and us getting into the postseason. And then on the defensive side, I got a question for you, and then I seen yesterday Louvu and Von Miller almost had a pick. I think that our line is going to have about 2 picks at the line of scrimmage this year because they know the game and they know how to play these screens and stuff like that. And then it seemed like Louvu was a step slow on a couple plays that I know he can make, especially those ones in the backfield on screens and things. Did he seem a step slow to you?
Not necessarily a step slow. He missed a tackle early. He didn't get necessarily. I'd have to look at the pass rush. I didn't think Louvu was at his best necessarily. I do think it was telling the lineup they put out there on 3rd and longs. There's no doubt that they view Louvu as one of their 4 best pass rushers. And to have Von Miller and Louvu on the outside, Armstrong, Payne on the inside, it's going to be interesting to see if they can get consistent pass rush pressure this year without blitzing. Did you find those blitz percentage numbers or not?
Next Gen Stats didn't have blitz numbers, which I find shocking.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I'm going to guess that they did not blitz a lot. Yeah.
I know Quan.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, DC.
I know I seen Quan had a blitz and Bobby. I don't think we blitzed a lot, but we sent some exotic blitzes when we did. It was some in different ways. I know that. But, I love that we dominated the line of scrimmage, man.
No doubt. Thanks for the call. There's no doubt, too, that Wagner, when he has responsibility for the running back, if the running back stays in to pass protect, then he's got a chance to be a pass rusher. Let's go to Sabah. Sabah wants to weigh in on the opener yesterday. Go ahead, Sabah.
Hey there, Kevin. I've been kind of busy this morning, so I probably missed a lot of the conversation earlier. And I was excited. The one thing that was a negative for me is I had too much company over. I got to stop doing that because you cannot focus when company is in. They just want to talk and play cards and stuff like that. And what I saw
what are you doing?
Why
are you inviting people over on game day?
Some people just kind of showed up. So, and then the ones I did invite, it was supposed to be like 12-1 and buy. And they kind of hung around. So that was a problem. I got to learn. I'm new. It's the season has just started. I'm not in the groove yet. I got to go back to my isolationism.
Yeah, you got to get in your groove.
Because I tell you, I was watching football till, that Baltimore Buffalo game. That was amazing. I just was watching the 4 o'clock games. Anyway, so what I noticed is that my husband calls him Jesus Daniels. So we're going to call him Jesus from now on. He played really well. That man is very confident and poised, and we've always said the same thing. But what I liked is when he was not accurate, it didn't bother him because he knows he has, another play, next play. He doesn't wallow in self-pity or get mad at the wide receiver or get mad at himself. And another thing I loved about our offense is I used to be able to predict the plays, Kevin. We all did. oh, this is going to be a run. Oh, this is going to be a toss. Oh, this is going to be a run. You know, I can't predict the plays now. They're very different. There's something going to happen every time that I don't know, and you know the defense doesn't know. And as far as our defense is concerned, I don't know if we're really this good on defense, but I tell you something who's really bad on offense with Russell Wilson, that's the Giants. And, you know, that was my surprise team. I think that was because of what I saw from Jackson Dart in the preseason. Because we didn't, this whatever they had, I was surprised they didn't bring Jackson Dart in the second half. I thought for sure he would come out and play.
I think we're going to see him a lot earlier. I mean, if this is Russell Wilson and he's on his third team in 3 years, he's a backup quarterback in this league now. I got to run Saban up against a hard break. Right. Ben Standig's going to join us next, everybody. Every Monday and Friday during the season and off season, for that matter, Ben Standig, our Washington Commanders team insider on this show, joins us. Ben's got a Substack column. I would urge you to subscribe to it. It's called Last Man Standing. He's got a podcast by the same name. He can be followed on X, on Twitter, at Ben Standig. Quick week this week before the Packers on the road Thursday night football to kick off week 2, but we're still talking, obviously, here on this Monday about Washington's season opening win over the Giants 21-6. So I'll give you the floor. Give me your reaction to yesterday's game.
Yeah, you know, look, aesthetically, it wasn't always the greatest showing, particularly with an offense that we saw last year, you know, just be so flashy and dynamic. They were, you know, they certainly did enough. But defensively, look, one game is one game. We can't go too crazy yet. But for all the talk of, that they're going to get these big men up front on the defensive line, that they've got, more talent, more activity, all that. I mean, that really showed yesterday. 2022, Deron Payne was out there. Javon Kinlaw, the guy that Adam Peters signed to a 3-year deal and took a lot of heat for it. He was a wrecking ball for sure. Dorrance Armstrong, who last year had a good year, but really picked it up in the postseason. He kept it up in camp. He kept that momentum going, and everybody else in the defense kind of filled in from there. And that's easily to me the most positive sign. The Giants are kind of a mess on offense. They didn't have their best offensive linemen. I don't know if they have any real weapons other than Malik Neighbors on offense, but whatever. They're an NFL team, and that's what they played. And Washington kept them, rather quiet. So to me, the defense, particularly up front, the story of this game. I mean, it's obviously fun to see Deebo Samuel and Bill, and of course, Jaden doing his things. But that defensive front, with one game, but if that's anything close to what they continue to do, this season could be, very, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was the biggest single mystery. We knew that the personnel would look different, both, in size-wise and jersey number-wise, and we needed to see it in a real game. Now, I wonder how much you take into account how feeble the Giants were offensively, kind of at quarterback for starters. I know that they were missing their best offensive lineman, but Russell Wilson to me looks shot. What did he look like to you?
Well, as Deron Payne said post-game, he said that Russell Wilson looks skittish at times, and I thought that was a good way to look at it. In fact, I was just watching some of the TV replay, and at one point Tom Brady says that Russell Wilson looks unsure of himself in the backfield, as he should, considering the pressure that he was getting. So, look, the Giants' offensive line has seemingly been bad for years, and then their record of that Andrew Thomas, their left tackle, is pretty abysmal, the way it was similar with like Brandon Scherf when he was always hurt here. So, we'll see about that. But yeah, the Giants were pretty terrible. But look, one thing I thought was underrated about last year was how it's not just that Washington was winning games, but when they were playing teams that they should win, they were crushing them. And, this game, as we know, until Washington got that last touchdown, it was still a one-score game. And,
never felt like it.
Right. It was like, all right, could you end this thing already? But yeah, they were in, they were in control. So, you have to, sometimes I felt like it's more impressive to go out and beat the teams handily you're supposed to than maybe pull a one-off and get an upset, because it's, you got to do it consistently. And this is something I think they did last year, and off to a good start in this one. And yeah, look, again, the Giants, a bit of a mess. There'll be a much sterner test Thursday against Green Bay, but division game, week 1, the starters on either side of the ball barely played in the preseason, so you weren't quite sure what to get. But all things considered, that was a pretty good showing on both sides.
How'd you think Jaden played?
Well, I guess the bar is just so high that anytime it's like, hey, the ball was catchable, but a little bit behind the guy. Come on, what are you doing? And then that happened 2 or 3 times. So for him, it was fine, but it was not. We don't have to definitively put a lot of that into the highlight reel. But he was fine, looked comfortable. I mean, look, was the timing off with Terry on that deep ball? I guess, I mean, obviously he overthrows a little bit. Terry does the jab step inside. They never really quite seem to find his speed. It seemed to me going down the sideline. So maybe if they do practice in training camp, they get that going. But again, he and Deebo look certainly on the same page as we saw all summer. I said Deebo was to me the most outstanding player of camp, and you saw why there. His ability to make plays down the field, be electric with the ball in his hands. And, Jaden had no issue there. I mean, look, even like, a guy like Chris Moore, who had been out, he'd been practicing with the team all summer. He'd looked good early in camp, but then he just had struggles to hold on to the ball. Jaden throws it perfectly to him, 34-yard gain in a big spot. So, I think Jaden was fine, but again, the bar is just so stupid high that when the Bulls you threw it a little bit behind the guy. Come on, what are you doing? That's kind of where we're at right now, which is obviously a great place to be.
We talked last week about the possibility that 4 running backs wouldn't be up. There were 3. There may have been a reason for it at wide receiver. I'll let you explain it, but Krosky Merritt over Chris Rodriguez. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean that part of it was not surprising. I wrote the other day in the end of the week about how sort of the running back room, I think how they handle that will dictate a lot about the roster and how Washington sees this game. And I thought Rodriguez, if they only went 3, would be the odd man out. That Bill, at the time that Dan Quinn said Rodriguez would sort of get first shot at short yardage, Bill was still dealing with a bit of a shoulder injury at that point, and it was still a couple weeks before the season. So look, I think Bill showed exactly what they were looking for. Every run you feel like he's on the verge of like breaking it. The touchdown run, 6 yards, it's designed more straight on. He bounces it outside. He later that gets the 40-yarder or 42-yarder where he shows that burst. So I think ultimately though at receiver, if you look at the snaps played, Terry's were in line with his norms. Noah Brown's were lower than last year. Not substantially lower, but a bit lower. And Chris Moore getting elevated. I thought he could get elevated with the idea that maybe as a bit of a hedge in case something was wrong with Noah Brown, couldn't quite go. But ultimately, I think it was because they just didn't get, they weren't sure how many snaps they were going to get out of these guys. And also, Luke McCaffrey essentially only played like 5 or 6 snaps on offense. So, Chris Moore basically was the 5th receiver. So while they had 6 receivers up, Luke McCaffrey was essentially just a special teams guy. So I think that's why that happened. And then in turn, you can't keep everybody up. They kept up a 4th tight end. They kept up all the defensive backs, so when you do some of these things, obviously you can't do everything. And I think that's why Rodriguez got dropped down. Plus, this is the thing also with Deebo Samuel, they kind of have a 4th running back at all times. So, you don't quite need him. And then the actual quarterback and Jaden Daniels, runs plenty. So that's why they didn't need 4, but it was just like, hey, well, where else are you getting your playmaking from? And no, I did not have Chris Moore getting a 34-yard catch on my bingo card, but hey, they threw him the ball, and this time he caught it.
Right. How did Quinn, and we haven't played it yet. I will if it's worthwhile. How did he explain the end of the first half?
Yeah, Quinn talked simultaneously when we're all in the locker room, and I did not get to him this time. So I actually wanted to hear more about what he had to say about that today. We'll talk to him in a few minutes to get his view, having watched the tape. I think watching it back myself, the one thing I wondered was it looked like Zach Ertz kind of, I don't know for sure, but it looked like he may have like stopped running his route in the back of the end zone. And he just sort of didn't roll because it was like to have no receiver over there in that corner was weird. Like independent of what Jaden did, like that there was nobody over there was sort of odd. And clearly Jaden thought somebody was going to be there. So I just wonder if maybe somebody stopped their route for whatever the reason. But obviously you can't have that. I know again, listening to the broadcast, Brady was saying that when they called their last time out with like 25 seconds left, that he didn't love that because he typically would want to hold on to one. That he kept harping on it throughout the rest of the series. Hey, now that you're here, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I don't know if you mentioned specifically you can't do intentional grounding, but it was obviously they were a bit rushed and not having that last time out, but proved costly there as much as anything.
Yeah, it was 28 seconds left. I actually disagreed with him, but what do I know? He's the greatest to ever play. I think what really hurt them was the quarterback draw in 2nd and 10. They think that's either going to score or at least get a first down where they can then clock it. But Abdul Carter made a really good play tackling Jaden a yard short of the sticks. We're talking to Ben Standig. Anything else like personnel wise? I pointed out something that I was definitely looking for heading into this game because I wasn't sure what the mix would be or if it would be consistent, but there's no doubt that, in pure 3rd and long passing situations, we know who they think their best pass rushers are. It's Luvu, it's Miller, it's Payne, and it's Armstrong. They were out there for most of them. I think Kinlaw was out there for Payne on one of them. Offensive line had a good day. Clearly, they rushed the ball for 220 yards. But, did you get a sense as to what they thought about Connerly's first game?
Yeah, again, that's another thing. As much as we all want to ask Dan Quinn in real time, what do you think? He's ultimately just like the rest of us. There's too many things happening to tell for sure. There was the one play where Brian Burns, easily got past Connerly for a sack, and that's one that's going to sort of stand out. But all things considered, I didn't think the Giants' defensive line was as dominated as I think some as feared a little bit because of the talent they have up front. So I think you got to give credit to the line as a whole, and Connerly as part of that. Look, I think Bill did a good job on the ground of getting more than was there at times, and with Jaden, he's obviously just going to be electric with the ball in his hands. So I think the line did fine. Jaden, I will say there was a stat I saw earlier today that basically when Jaden was in the pocket, when he faced four or fewer pass rushers, he was had a 121.9 passer rating, which was the second highest of his career. But against the blitz, he was only 3 of 9 for 29 yards with a 43.3 passer rating, which was the lowest of his career. Last year, he didn't set the record, but he had the highest QB rating versus the blitz of any rookie since 2018. Right. So that was unusual to see him struggle in that regard. But again, he's going to have to give up some pressures. Russell Wilson would have gladly only faced the pass rush pressure that Daniels is. He was getting it, literally every other play. So I think the line did fine, but but it is interesting that Jaden struggled against the blitz in ways we have not seen before.
Yeah, he got sacked 3 times. I think one of them was clearly on him. Connerly Jr. got beat on another one, but we'll see. Anything else other than, short turnaround? And I think it's hard to know early in the season, but a much better opponent on the road Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's the one takeaway. We already talked about the defensive line a little bit. Something that perked up, that had us all perk up back in May or June was when the coaching staff was talking about how Daron Payne looked focused and all that. And you're like, okay, cool. And we recognize that while it's not technically a contract year, it's kind of a contract year, and the last time was easily the best year of his career. And then you're like, okay, well, is this is this a real thing? And then we saw the performance yesterday. Yes, this looks like it's going to be a real thing. And he said after the game that, a lot of people have already, written him off and, this, that, and the other. And he's like, hey, might as well just go out there and play as hard as I can. Yeah, good. Just assume everybody has written you off, Daron. We do have questions about what happened the last 2 years when you got paid that just weren't nearly as impressive as what, sort of we saw yesterday. And that's fine. The thing with this defense is, everybody was lamenting the fact that they didn't get a Trey Hendrickson or a Myles Garrett, or they didn't draft a defensive end high, meaning they may have some talent, but they don't really have that one sort of game record. And, maybe that guy is ultimately going to be Javon Kinlaw based on yesterday. We'll see. But Daron Payne, we know from a talent perspective, has that game. If he's able to collapse the pocket consistently, that changes the whole calculus of what they have, because now you do have a guy who's Pro Bowl worthy along with the other pieces. So if that continues for him specifically, I really think this defense then could go, up a notch like we saw yesterday. So that to me was the most interesting part of this. Contract year Daron felt like that was a real thing, and now after that game, it sure does even more.
Yeah, I think a part of it too could be he's not going to be the guy that has to eat up all the double teams with Kinlaw in there, and gives him a chance, one-on-one more often than maybe he's had in the last couple of years. Thanks. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you later.
Awesome, man. See ya.
Ben Standig, everybody. When we come back, you'll hear some of what Dan Quinn said post-game, and then we'll go around the NFL and talk about, for sure, last night's incredible Baltimore-Buffalo game where the Bills came from 15 down in the final 4 minutes of the game to beat the Ravens 41-40. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
You didn't learn anything new about Jaden Daniels today, did you, that you didn't know?
You talk a lot. Cool dude, but he talk a lot. I don't want to talk to you.
That was Brian Burns for the Giants saying Jaden talks a lot. There's a meme of Jaden just kind of smiling and giggling at him as he's running away from him on a scramble. It's way too early to start nitpicking on some of this stuff, but we had G and Paulie and Neil and a couple of others just mention, and it's something you've seen with Mahomes. When they're that gifted and that talented, and they know they can overcome, a play that may not go their way, which is, of course, what you want. Sometimes it gets a little bit too casual at times. I'm not accusing him of that yet, but he is having a great time. It is very light. I understand he's a very serious, prep and work ethic. But there are some plays when you watch it, it's almost like, yeah, maybe you just hit the check down now and we just, get 9 yards and move on to it. Or maybe you just get to the sideline rather than taking on a tackler, as he did on an early read option keeper. He could have easily gotten to the sideline. He's generational talent-wise, and the confidence goes with the talent and with the understanding that he is prepared. Yesterday, there was nothing that they were going to do, with the exception of just hand the ball to Thibodeau or Abdul Carter and say, run it in for a touchdown, where they could have lost that game. I mean, I don't care at 14-6 Giants having the ball. Were you ever watching this football game worried about win versus loss? No. The fact that they let them hang in there long enough where they had the ball down 8, with a chance, but the chances were slim and none that they were going to punch it into the end zone after a long drive. Not yesterday, not with that quarterback playing. Big spot. It's week 2. It's still very early in the season, and it's not do or die, make or break by any stretch, but it is going to be a much better test on Thursday night at Lambeau in front of that crowd and a team that is talented and really dominated the Detroit Lions yesterday in the opener 27-13. I think it's talent-wise, adding obviously Parsons to, Walker and Gary and Van Ness and the guys that they have defensively. They got a chance, Green Bay does, to have a very, very good defensive team in 2025. And personally, I am a fan of Jordan Love. I think he can play. Josh Jacobs obviously can. They've got some playmakers. Jaden Reed's got speed and playmaking ability. We'll see. How did I'm pulling up the box score right now, but did the receiver that they've been raving about, the Texas kid, Golden, did he have a good game? We'll get to it around the NFL. I'll have the numbers for you coming up. I did want to play some Dan Quinn for you out of yesterday's post-game press conference that we have not had a chance to get to yet. This was Quinn overall on the game and saying there is a lot to clean up.
There's plenty to clean up. I thought, prior to the next game, that part, but I wanted to make sure identity, toughness, physicality, like that is how we get down and how we play. We knew this to be a line of scrimmage game on both sides. Their defensive line, our offensive line, was going to be a battle. I liked how we took care of the ball. We did not create any, and so that's a big deal for us. I thought they did a good job of taking care of it. It didn't seem like it was in harm's way, but I thought the inside guys battled and the outside guys were going to get tested. And so that was defensively what I thought would happen. Offensively, I thought we hurt ourselves with some penalties that created some tough, to go third downs to go. So we didn't get quite as many ops as I would have liked. But at the end, to finish with the ball at the game, that's the toughness. That's the winning time moments that we talk about. So that part I'm pleased with, but lots to clean up. I'm pleased with the win.
Yeah, penalties, some negative plays. I mentioned already, this team's ability to overcome disadvantaged down and distance situations was something we watched all last year, and it continued yesterday against a good defense. But the 2nd and 15, 2nd and 21, 2nd and 16, 2nd and 14, you're supposed to punt on most of those. And they don't on most of them. It is obviously quarterback led, but you got to give everybody credit, including Cliff Kingsbury, for extricating themselves out of ugly at times down and distance situations. They got to stay out of those. Much better, 7 yards on first down, no third down. They had 11 third downs. Part of that is because of what happened on first down and what they have to overcome on second down. But it is amazing to watch this group over the last, 20 games last year, 1 game this year. 2nd and 16 is far from a death sentence in terms of the drive. I mean, it is still probably even money that they're not punting. And yesterday, they didn't get themselves through 2nd and 3rd down into a 4th and go for it situation. They just typically either converted on 2nd down or they didn't, but they overcame 4 long 2nd down situations. It's impressive to watch them do that. This was Dan Quinn overall on the overall defense.
Yeah, I really thought that was a strong performance. And you heard me talk about identity, the tackling. We didn't create the takeaways today, but man, seeing some plays down inside the 10-yard line, the red zone, the guys have worked hard at that. And for our new players that are added to our group, I thought that was a good, mix of what they can be, and JK and Will and Vaughn and some of the others that I spoke to post game, just knowing they're a big part of what we're doing and how we're going to improve. So I was pleased to see, especially down in the low red zone. I thought that was the real game changer part of this game. 2 stops down there. That was a big deal.
I think this first game is way too premature to say, okay, totally different season with respect to the defense than last year. And it's because of the opponent. With that said, I think the personnel differences, I think Kinlaw looks the part, size-wise, athletic-wise. Payne looked different yesterday. Amos, some of the length that they have and some of the speed, they can run better on the back end. I thought also the tackling was better. Now, Neighbors ended up with 5 catches, 71 yards, turned Amos around early on an incredible route. But he was targeted 12 times, only had 5 catches. And a couple of them were, significant, contested catch situations for him. He is special, no doubt. But it's too early to declare anything. Week 1's always too early to declare anything, but you have to take into consideration they were playing against, I think now, a backup quarterback in the NFL. They won't do that on Thursday night. This was Dan Quinn on, having a game in which they didn't have to rely on Jaden Daniels to be Superman.
That was a big deal, and I love the run at the end and with Bill at the end. But you're right, Dave, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take all of us. So for guys to step in, I was pleased to see Debo, get to kind of express that play of being aggressive. If you'd ask us, I would say we had too many, the 50-50 balls and drops and penalties that were not, what were normal there. But to know that we can lean on one another, and I know you've heard me say this before, but I do like our team, and that's how you have to win games some way, in different phases to go through it. And so to be able to lean in on the defense today, I thought that was a good sign.
Yeah, one of the things, and I had Quinn on, a week and a half ago, I guess, and I asked him, when do you know the kind of team you have? And he admitted sometimes it's several games into a year before you really have an understanding of what you have. But what you do learn about your team, even over the offseason of OTAs and mini camp days and training camp, is you learn what kind of culture and what kind of work ethic and what kind of identity the team is going to have. And that's something he focused on last year with Adam Peters, and it's continued this year. They are looking to be a physical, fast-playing, hard-playing group all of the time. We saw that pretty much as a consistent theme to even some of the losses last year. And we saw that yesterday, man. They were playing fast. They were playing, the old, hair on fire adage, urgently, physically hitting. Some of it cost them with some of the penalties. Penalties of aggression, are, I think, okay for a lot of coaches. Now, the aggression when it turns into not necessarily prudent or wise, like the Lattimore penalty in the first half. Lattimore had one of those, remember, last year in the NFC Championship game as well. They got to clean some of that stuff up. But, they have an identity. We'll find out in the coming weeks if that, beyond identity, they have enough supporting cast offensively and a good enough defense where week in and week out, they don't have to rely on Jaden to bail them out. They had a 15-point win in the opener yesterday. The opponent had something to do with that. They did not have to attempt a fourth down. All the conversation about, well, they'll never duplicate the fourth down percentage. They'll never duplicate it. It'll regress to the mean, which is absurd for any mathematician, on the fourth quarter comebacks or the, late game wins. Well, maybe they won't have many of those this year. Maybe they'll have multiple double-digit wins. Maybe there will only be 5 or 6 games that come down to the wire and to the fourth quarter rather than 12 games or 11 games that come down to the wire. I pointed out this Josh Allen deal. The first year he started was his second year, and there were a lot of close games. And people said, well, he can't do it. There's going to be sort of this regression to the mean on the close comeback wins and fourth quarter, game-winning drives, et cetera. But the following year, they just didn't have them. They just blew everybody out. Offensively, they were just incredible. And his touchdown to interception ratio was unbelievable. The yards went up, exponentially, and they went 13-3 and didn't have the same number of close games. That is always a possibility. For this team, for that to be a possibility, they've got to be better on defense. They've got to create more opportunities, and it would be nice to create the short fields. You didn't need that yesterday with a takeaway or two because you held them to 3.7 yards per play. But takeaways, they've emphasized takeaways and tackling. I thought tackling was really good yesterday. They didn't get a takeaway. This was Quinn on Josh Connerly Jr.'s debut.
We knew this is going to be a tough matchup, just with the style of Burns and Carter are going to be there, Thibodeau, and like good matchups, good tough things. But one thing that I've learned about Connerly, like he really does like a challenge. And in the early part of training camp, Kenny was good. I was seeing it, and then we went to New England, and it elevated. And when you are a young player and you get your first start, there's things you like, things you don't. Same with Amos to say, okay, you got a PI. I thought it was a good aggressive play. How do we learn from it? And so the fact that it'll be a division game, now he'll have something to pull back on for when we play them, weeks from now. So all of those things matter. Like the younger you are, man, like you want to eat experience. I need him. I need every bit of it. And so you grow, you make mistakes, you fail some, you do well. And then he's the type of player that does learn from it. And so that's kind of what happens as you grow. And they seem to grow faster, when you have the mindset, like, I'm not going to do that again. I liked how this went. And Josh certainly has that.
There are positions, we know this as NFL fans, where starting your first year, first game, it's going to be a challenge. Left tackle, corner, quarterback, obviously. The positions where sometimes you see young players make a major impact in their first game are the positions that take less in terms of overall responsibilities. Running back, sometimes at wide receiver, although sometimes that position too, you get a experience, gives you a feel for route, coverages and how to handle those coverages. But starting as a rookie at left tackle against, as he said, the Burnses and the Abdul Carters and the Okerekes and the players that the Giants have on defense, they've got very good players on defense. Sometimes it's a challenge. One more from Quinn. I wanted to give you what he said yesterday about the secondary, very much a revamped secondary with Trey Amos and Will Harris out there. Here's what he said about their game yesterday against New York.
This is a strong receiving core. We thought, coming in, I thought the strength of New York was, receivers, D-line, and those would be kind of the areas that they would push us and test us. Thought Russ is somebody that can just throw a fantastic deep ball, and they did test us. So to see us battle for it downfield, that was a big, step in the right direction for us, knowing that's how you got to play. That's what life outside is. And to see them deliver, that was a big piece for us.
Yeah. And look, Sandra Still, Lattimore, and Amos were pretty much on the field for, they're in nickel a lot of the time with all three out there. And by the way, you can afford to be that way when you can stop the run without, adding to the box. And they did that yesterday for sure. All right. We'll keep you posted. Quinn's going to hold his Monday presser on anything he says today if it happens before the end of the show. When we come back, though, we'll go around the NFL and we'll start in Buffalo last night with one of the best week one games we have ever seen.
All right. Happy Victory Monday, Commanders fans. It is September 8th. My name is Max Ames. Here is what's happening in the world of DC sports. The Washington Commanders, they beat the New York Giants by a score of 21-6. The biggest story of the game, the revamped defensive line looked very solid, keeping Russell Wilson in check. First time Commanders defense has held an opposing team to 0 touchdowns since they beat the Dallas Cowboys 25-3 in week 7 of 2020. It is also the first time a Washington defense has held the opposing team to no touchdowns in a week 1 game for the first time since 1999. The Mystics, they get drubbed by the Indiana Fever last night by a score of 94-65. The Nats, they beat the Cubs 6-3. Mason Thompson gets credited with the win. Jose A. Ferrer gets the save after the Nats score 5 runs in the top of the 9th inning, including a 3-run home run from Josh Bell. The Nats head down to Miami tonight to take on the Marlins. First pitch at 6:40. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:10 on the Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
An all-out pressure look. Here they come. Smith protected, hoisting to the end zone. Wide open, Tucker.
Up for a game-winning field goal. From 32 yards, Prater made it, and the Bills open their final season in this stadium with a stunning comeback win.
I'm sorry, did you play the play? Okay, because you had me down there. So that was the game-winning field goal?
I accidentally dropped the Trey Tucker touchdown before that. That was my bad, folks.
So Buffalo last night pulled off an absolute incredible comeback and beat the Ravens 41-40 in a game I think we will look back on during the course of the year and wonder how many games can top it. First of all, let me just begin with this. The first part of this game, it's like, my God, I mean, the two teams were so ready. They looked so much like, what we saw last year. It's week one. Even when you have two really good teams playing each other in week one, it can look sloppy. It can look nothing like what it would look like in October or November or December or January. But these were two teams, clicking at a high level, and Baltimore more so. Baltimore had 155 yards rushing in the first half. They couldn't stop the run. Buffalo was supposed to be better defensively this year. Buffalo is the favorite to win the Super Bowl, or they were before last night. Maybe they still are. Baltimore was favored in the game. We talked about that, remember, Max, on Friday. And when it started off, it was like, oh, yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry is from a different planet. This guy now, at 31 years old, 32 years old, we're now talking about year two in Baltimore after he rushed for nearly 2,000 yards last year. God, man, to think that in 2016 he was a second-round pick and Washington selected Josh Doctson. My fault. No, it wasn't my fault. Derrick Henry was incredible last night. Lamar Jackson was incredible last night. Buffalo had no receivers last year, or we didn't think they did. I love the way Keon Coleman looks. I love the way they threw to Josh Palmer from the Chargers. He looks good. I mean, this was the battle of incredible play by quarterbacks and playmakers. And, I mean, last year's MVP against a two-time MVP. It was just an incredible football game. It's 20-13 at halftime. Incredible job by Buffalo to get a field goal at the end of the half. Baltimore then takes a commanding 40-25 lead. They missed the extra point on the touchdown that made it 40-25, which really ultimately hurt them significantly. But you get down to the final 4 minutes, and Buffalo is down by 15. They score a touchdown. They kick on this extra point. They probably went for two too early in some of the other situations. And then you get an unbelievable turn of events. Derrick Henry, who ended up with 169 yards in the game on 18 carries. If you're wondering what that computes to, 9.4 yards per carry. He had in the game touchdown runs of 30 yards, and then his other touchdown run was 46 yards in the game. But he fumbled late in the game. I mean, a devastating fumble. At 40-25, even with Buffalo scoring, you're like, I don't know, can they get off the field on defense? And a great play by Ed Oliver, who had an excellent game. And 4 plays later, they're in the end zone. But they missed the 2-point conversion with under 2 to go in the game. Now, Buffalo still got 3 timeouts. They're down 40-38. And for, I think, pretty much the only time in the game, they force a punt in 3 or out. Actually, they had one other 3 and out in the game. They used up their timeouts, and then Baltimore's got a 4th and 2, 4th and 3 from their own 38, a minute 33 left, up 40-38. Sorry, that's a go for it situation. You cannot punt the ball and give it to Josh Allen up 2. You cannot do that. I wonder if I would think differently up 3. I definitely feel differently up 4, but up 2, even though they don't have timeouts left, they're going to get the ball back with about 1:25 to go. 4th and 2, 4th and 3 somewhere, probably 4th and 2.5. I think with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry from your own 38-yard line, you have to go for that, period. They didn't. They punted. The Ravens, so analytically driven. I don't know what the analytics say there. I know in the moment I said you cannot punt the football and give it to Josh Allen or you are going to lose, or certainly they're going to have a field goal attempt to beat you. And it might be a short one because he's got plenty of time to get down the field. I'm surprised they didn't go for that. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, seriously? You're not going to go for 4th and less than 3 to end the game? They didn't. They punted. Buffalo drove the ball down the field and into field goal range, and Matt Prater booted it through at the end of the game. There were a couple of things that were really interesting about the last 20-some seconds. First of all, on the field goal attempt itself, my God, Kyle Hamilton, how did he not block the field goal? Did you see him? Go watch the game-winning field goal from Prater. Kyle Hamilton breaks through the line of scrimmage, and he's right there. You gotta lay out and go for it. And he didn't. The ball went almost through his arms, it looked like. That ball should have been blocked by Kyle Hamilton on that kick. Secondly, about that final kick, they took their final knee with 33 seconds to go after Baltimore had called their final timeout. And, they had the field goal team come out, line up, kick, and they snapped the ball with 2 seconds to go. They got really tight. They've planned this, they've worked on it, but I'm sure they'd like the ball snapped with about 3 or 4 seconds to go rather than have it get down to 2. I kept thinking, can you imagine if they're, because the kicker has to take those steps and get his steps marked off before, the holder looks at the kicker and the kicker says yes. And then the holder, looks at the snapper and says, we're ready. Those guys aren't looking at the clock. They've got it, I'm sure timed out, and it worked, and they kicked it through as the clock expired. I had a tweet from somebody that said, do you think that Baltimore called their last timeout too early? They called their last timeout with 33 seconds to go after Josh Allen knelt for the second time, sort of in the middle of the field to size it up for, to straighten it out for Prater. It's a really good tweet. I want to give the guy credit for it. Sorry. Whatever. I have a tweets to get back to where you sent this to me. Jim Cy Yang tweeted me and said, time management question, Kevin. When should Harbaugh have called that last time out? I would have called it with 18 seconds left so that they couldn't do what they did without rushing the kick. The third down becomes super interesting for the Bills. I love that because, yes, he called it with 33 seconds to go. After that last kneel down, he could have let the clock run and called it with 8. Now, with 18 seconds left, I think Josh Allen's going to take the third down snap, roll right, burn 5, 6, 7 seconds, and throw the ball out of bounds. But to your point, they're not kicking it with the clock expiring. They're kicking it with maybe 11. Maybe the thing to do there is to not call it with 33, but to call it with about 25. Then it gets a bit dicey for them to kneel because they will be rushing it. And if they take the, sprint out, throw an incompletion, maybe there are 18, 17 seconds left when they kick the field goal. It at least gives Lamar a shot if, say, the kick goes into the end zone and you get it at the 35. Plus this guy, Tyler Loop's got a huge leg. I love that idea, Jim Cy Yang. That makes a lot of sense. Calling it at 33 allowed Buffalo to do what they did, which is take another knee, roll the clock, have the field goal team come out, even though you don't have a timeout, and run the clock down to, as they did, zeros. You take that timeout a little bit later at I would say 23, 24, 25. Then you get into that scenario in which maybe they're risking it, kneeling it. And if they do kneel it, they're going to have to really rush. Incredible football game. 2 MVPs. I heard Orlovsky say this morning that he doesn't think that Josh Allen's ever played a better football game. He's had some incredible games, especially in the postseason. He was 33 of 46 for 394, 2 touchdowns in the game. And Keon Coleman looks the part. He was their 2nd-round pick out of Florida State last year, and he's a big dude. He's like 6'4", 6'5", and I love the acquisition of Joshua Palmer. I think he looks really good. DeAndre Hopkins had a sick touchdown catch. Just a great football game. Incredible football game. Buffalo, their schedule, I heard them talking about it this morning on one of the shows. They have the Chiefs, they have Houston, but they got the AFC East, and then they've got, Cleveland on the schedule. They've got Miami on the schedule, Carolina on the schedule. They got the NFC South. So Buffalo now, if they were already a big favorite to win the AFC East and maybe grab the 1 seed. They are probably right now the front runner to get the 1 seed in the AFC, especially holding a victory over Baltimore. An incredible football game last night at Highmark, the last season opener at that stadium in Orchard Park before their new stadium opens next year. We don't have enough time to go through the rest of the NFL card. We'll do that on tomorrow's show because there were great games. I mean, Bucks-Falcons was a phenomenal football game. Steelers-Jets. I'm telling you guys, Aaron Rodgers was not the problem in New York. Okay, he looked like Aaron Rodgers a lot of last year. Their kicking game was terrible. The organization was dysfunctional. Their defense didn't play well. Aaron Rodgers looked like Aaron Rodgers yesterday. 4 touchdown passes. I'll tell you what was scary for the Steelers is their inability, pass defense-wise, to stop Justin Fields. They had major issues, if you recall, at the end of last year, stopping people from a pass defense standpoint, but a big hit by Jalen Ramsey to end that game. 49ers, Seahawks, Rams, Texans, some really compelling week 1 games and some shockers like Daniel Jones and the Colts running the Dolphins out of the building. Man, it seems like Mike McDaniel might not be a guy that makes it the entire season. But again, going back to what I said at the very beginning of the show, bringing it full circle, week 1, don't make any big-time proclamations or bets on what you saw in week 1. It tends to be, very much fool's gold for the season. All right, Monday Night Football tonight, Minnesota and Chicago. We get to see what Detroit was missing yesterday in the form of Ben Johnson as a head coach, see how he gets it together with Caleb Williams. Should be an interesting game to watch J.J. McCarthy's debut as well. That is it for the day. Back tomorrow. Chris Russell takes his swing at yesterday's game next.